You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
I am a bedroom Beethoven.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to episode 111 of the podcast. My guest this week is...
I'm Blockhead. I'm a producer slash beatmaker. I have worked with Aesop Rock. I've worked with Cage. I've worked with Billy Woods. I've worked with Murs. I've worked with a bunch of other people. I don't know. Just a lot of people. a lot of people. Underground rap guys.
AKA Tone Capone, right?
Yeah, AKA, yeah.
Late to his own self, he's the belliest king hippo. The Emma was Van Helsing. The hell I was from a portrait of a barn man melting. Spells out help in his canned corn helping. And never pushed Mongo. Back foot kicking up the larval stage. Front foot navigate the marble maze. Blues crooners off the usual and hooters. Drag a Lilliputian kicking and screaming into the future.
Hey, fun episode this week as the veteran hip-hop producer and beatmaker Blockhead and I talk about his journey working odd jobs in New York, the college days with Aesop Rock, cancel culture, music, and more, and this all leads up to future projects that he may or may not be able to talk about. But Core in Peace is now available, which is the soundtrack for the pandemic.
Stare at the sun till he bathed the moon. Share crumbs with the drums till he lay in a tomb. Room.
And before I begin the conversation, though, there are plenty of ways to listen to the podcast. BedroomBeethovens.com or your favorite podcasting streaming app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I do not need to list it off because you know them. But what you may not know is the amount of work that goes into this podcast week after week. So show your love and I'll show some back. Patreon.com/Bedroom Beethovens is where you can give a buck or two to the show, and in turn, there's goodies to be had. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, all those algorithms, it helps out. And more content will come. Can't stop, won't stop. Episode 111 with Blockhead. Let's start the show.
Old Pro Mag throwing scraps at the sled dogs. Yes, y'all death walking is the stress call. Horse fly back, stroking through the bread bowl. Bed sores, bad hair, raced on bad nose. Make bad songs, you can twirl a bad stash too. Nano, styles like wild javelinas. Stampeding over Bob Dabalinas with a boomerang bow, slingshot and ocarina. Rock shock, not the property of any knockin' reaper. All these posers, aggy and unsheltered, came to the party like a pox on the culture. Flip the rook, kiss the cook.
Before we start recording, I complimented you on your accessibility and your flexibility. But number two is you have the belief that just because you like music doesn't mean you're qualified to review it. And that philosophy could easily be twisted into, well, just because you like music doesn't mean you should start a podcast. So, you know, I'm just a guy. You know, why am I interviewing RJD2 and Prince Paul? I mean, I never worked for any music outlet. You know, I'm just a guy. So you must have saw something here worth your time. So I just wanted to thank you for being here.
Oh no problem. I mean, you know, it's about, if people have like passion about something, that's usually a good starter for someone who wants to talk about something. You know what I mean? Like, it's especially with music. Like, you know, we've all done interviews. All musicians have done interviews with people who simply don't give a shit, and it shows. So when you're talking to someone who does, and who's actually like knowledgeable about it, it's like a breath of fresh air. So.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, it's a great time to be alive because you're joining me on the 40th anniversary of the hit Smash and Station. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free.
Wait, you know what's crazy is that song is literally one of two songs I ever like, or the first two songs I ever remember hearing.
Oh, so music is like your calling. When you heard that, it was like something, a flip switched.
That song and Eye of the Tiger were the two songs I loved when I was like a baby. And I literally yeah, the Greatest American Hero theme was like that. I have a clear memory of hearing that for the first time, and I don't remember much from that age either. It's funny that I actually do
I
remember
just
that.
remember Family Guy making fun of it, and
Oh yeah.
and it just popped into my mind. You mentioned though, like the quarantine, how it's been affecting you and all that, but for you, it was probably business as usual because you love to spend a bulk of your time just at home bored, and you said you love it.
Yeah, this is nothing. This is light work for me. I mean, it is getting a little, it's a bit much because I am a social person, and I do kind of miss traveling. Even though, like at the time, a year ago, I was probably sick of it because I've been touring for 5 months. But yeah, no, I miss. I mean, I miss freedom, the freedom to do whatever I want. And but as far as just like being able to keep myself busy at home and that kind of stuff, like this is nothing for me. Like on a mental health level, like this does not affect me at
Well,
all.
what about stuff from your childhood being a victim of the pandemic? Like, is that bakery on Hudson Street that they closed down because of the pandemic?
Oh no, that's been closed for like 20 years.
But you know what I mean, though. Like maybe
Oh
maybe
yeah,
the scenery has been changed. Like,
New York's looking like Detroit these days. Because it's all. I mean, everything's boarded up. But at the same time, it's like it's funny because a lot of people complain about all these like kind of famous places shutting down, and it is sad to see a lot of them go. But also like like Starbucks are shutting down, and like that's fine. Like that's like there's a balance to it, and I'm more just curious to see what it will be like after. That will be the really. I mean, if everything becomes banks and Starbucks, then we're fucked. But if perhaps rents are going to go down, and rents have gone down like considerably in the last 4 or 5 months, so things might move in that are cooler than say a bank or a Dwayne Reed.
I think when Louis C.K. first moved to New York, there was a place next door to his apartment called Kim's Video.
I used to work there. I used to work at one of them.
Do you have any cool stories from working there?
I was a security guard. There was a bunch of them. There was a video store was the main one, and I worked there for a day and got fired because they put me on the schedule and didn't tell me, didn't show up. And then there was one on St. Mark's Place, which was a video store, record store, CD store, and I got a job there in the cafe, which had just opened, but the cafe closed quickly. And I was like, "Do you guys have any other jobs?" And they hired me as a security guard, and I was like 19 or 20. And at that point, I like maybe yeah, no, I was like I was 20, and I think that like I was already doing stuff with Aesop, and like I think like yeah, like Music by Cave Light had already come out. So it was an interesting time to work there because like people there, Kim's Video was very like a hip. They knew about stuff, so they knew about that, but they didn't know I was involved in it, and I was just the security guard there.
That's funny. Wow.
So it was a funny thing, but I was the only like non-African person who worked security, and and I literally never stopped anyone from stealing anything.
But it's funny. I read that. I heard that Kim only hired black people for security, and behind the counter,
Yeah.
he rarely hired people outside of Korean descent, and they all had bad attitudes. And the store was actually written up in the New York press as the meanest service in New York.
I think early on it was like that, but by the time I was there was a lot of people. It was mostly like college kids and like hipsters working behind the counter because like a video store and like a record store were like the cool jobs to have at that time. So and people who worked there, kind of like how other music, they hired like knowledgeable people. The people who worked at Kim's in the music section actually knew about music, but they were assholes. They were definitely even they were assholes to me, and I worked there.
Yeah.
So it was very, it wasn't friendly. But Mr. Kim, I only saw him a couple times, but he was a total crook from what I recall.
I think Andrew W.K. worked there and got fired as well.
Yeah, I think there's a long lineage of people who got fired from Kim's Video.
So from what I'm reading, Brad Pitt went there, David Lee Roth went there, MCA from the Beastie Boys, and these are people that had memberships. RuPaul, Peter Weller from RoboCop came in there and rented a German porno called Pissy Teeny. That's on record.
Well, that's the thing about Kim's Video is like the video store itself was like they specialized in cult movies. Like if you wanted a normal movie, you go to like Blockbuster. But if you wanted like and I was kind of into like cult movies and like weird horror movies and stuff like that, and so I would go there. I was a member of that, and I would rent weird movies from Kim's. And I saw all sorts of crazy shit that I probably wouldn't have seen if it was not for Kim's. Because they also had like people who worked there who would like have their picks, and it would always be some really obscure thing that otherwise, before the internet, you just wouldn't be able to find.
That's crazy. I also read that he gave Mary Kate Olsen a $650 late charge on her account that she never paid. All true stories.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. There'll be a documentary about him one day.
So,
There will.
So you mentioned like, man, I was exposed to a lot of things if I didn't work there, but also from a musical side, your parents were kind of lax on what you were listening to. Because I'm a parent now, and I'm not exactly a helicopter dad, but I don't know if I would let my 11-year-old listen to Two Live Crew. I don't know.
They didn't know. I mean, my dad was an artist, and like he didn't give a shit. And my mom, it's not like I played it out loud. I had like a Walkman, so like I would just just listen to what I would listen to. Like as long as I didn't expose. And I was actually pretty aware of what I could and couldn't play in front of my mom. And again, like I had a pretty bohemian, like my youth was bohemian, like a very artist. My mom's a social worker. Like it wasn't strict, but I also wasn't like a bad kid, so I didn't really like give them reason to worry too much. But I would like play, like when it came to rap and my mom, I would play her like like native tongues and like try to like push the jazz stuff on her, and she'd be like, yeah, this is okay. My mom was like an old lady, so she was a good sport about it. At least
You didn't play her the Full Metal Jacket intro. That's what you're saying.
no, I didn't play her Dick Almighty.
But it's funny. I at that age I bought the Spice Girls CD because of the lyrics. If you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends. So I thought it was a CD about threesomes. So I get it.
It's a gangbang anthem.
That's in my mind. That's what I thought, and I was let down.
Yeah.
But even at that age, you knew that life didn't always have to imitate art. Like just because I listened to Marilyn Manson, I don't have to put on a duster and shoot up my school. I know that when Eazy-E said
God, no.
"fuck the police," he was frustrated. But when Ice Cube made a song called "Natural Born Killers," he wasn't really going out slicing throats and shooting AKs. Maybe so.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I never had a moment in my life where I was like what they're saying is what I should do. Like I always, it was always very much like I was like, that's their experience. Like I know my situation is different, but also like the only stuff that really hit me in any sort of way was actually like the more social commentary stuff of like like the like Public Enemy and even Native Tongues to an extent, like Jungle Brothers for sure. Like their stuff kind of hit me and made me kind of more aware of the social issues back then, which is interesting because I was listening to Two Live Crew and then I'd be like, oh, let me put on something that like makes me think about things that are a little deeper than that.
So how did you convince your mom to take you to see Beat Street? What was your little kid pitch to her?
I don't remember at all, and I can't believe she went. Like I think she must have thought it was something else. Maybe she thought it was like like a musical or something. I really don't know. Like I don't remember the context of that, but I did see it in the theater. I remember it and just being like, holy shit. And when I saw the Christmas rap, and then when I saw the Treacherous 3 and Kumo D cursing, I was like, what is this? I was like, my eyes were open. I was like, this is it. This is what I like.
The more I kind of delved into the way you make music, I read a direct quote from you that says, I want to make music. I want the music I make to be unaffected by outside influences. Is that even still possible still with the chaos, the pandemic? Are you just able to just turn your brain to neutral and create?
I mean, it's hard to say because I work with samples, so like I'm really only affected by what samples I pick and choose, and like, and it's not really a situation of like, oh, I feel this mood today, so I'm gonna go make a beat like this. I mean, I've tried to do that, but it just doesn't always work out like that, and it kind of like it's kind of this thing. Like when I start making a beat, I just kind of am set on a path by one sound, and then I just kind of follow it. And it's never, I mean, granted, like I do tend to end with like minor keys, like I definitely am drawn to that kind of melody, but I don't know, like I don't think that like what's going on in my life doesn't tend to affect me that much. Maybe, I mean, only with like albums and stuff. Like if I can step back from like full albums and be like, oh, I was in this headspace when I made this album, like only after the fact. But when I'm just sitting down making beats, just on a casual, say I make a beat today, like it won't be affected by the fact that I've been in my house for 9 months. I don't think. I think it'll just be like, hey, it's just making a beat.
What about like the passing of Doom? Since like Rhymes Like Dimes is one of your favorites.
If I were to come across a loop that would remind me of Doom, I might push into it a little bit and might see what I can do with it. But otherwise, it's just it's separate from me. Like it doesn't like I guess I can compartmentalize really well because it doesn't really affect how I work, and also like my music doesn't really reflect my personal mood as a person. Like my music is much sadder than I am, and much more. Yeah, it's like it's melancholy, and I'm not really like that. Like I'm pretty, level. I'm like annoyingly centered.
Like if you put out a record, people might DM you like, "Are you okay?" Like, "Yeah, I'm great, man." Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends. It depends what if I were to really go for it and like name the songs something truly depressing or something, then maybe maybe they would. But I don't. I mean, my real friends in real life like probably don't listen to my music, and if they did, they'd be like, "What?"
That makes sense. It's funny. I'm kind of the same way where I compartmentalize really well, but there are two lyrics that I think about in hip hop all the time. And one is Sean Price, where he says, "Money ain't a thing," says the guy who's rich, while the broke motherfucker thinking life's a bitch. And then the other one is Doom on Rhymes Like Dimes when he says, "Only in America could you find a way to make a healthy buck and still keep your attitude on self-destruct."
I love that.
I think about those constantly, and it just, now that I reflect, it's like, oh man, both those guys they passed on, and it makes it more profound. And
oh yeah, for sure.
I read your article. I like how you examine death in hip hop, because society acts funny in that sense, where we bury the living and we tend to raise the dead. And Doom died, and 5 of his albums hit the top 100, and it's like,
yeah.
I don't want to be like, morbid, but if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, do you think about how society would hoist you up? Maybe Labor Days would enter the top 10 or something you did decades ago.
Well, if I died, I don't think it would affect Labor Days too much. I mean, there'd be a little blip in Labor Days. I mean, if Aesop died, sure. But I mean, if I died, there'd be probably like a couple weeks where my songs got more streams, and then life would return to normal, I think. I mean, in Doom's case, because he is a bigger artist, and also because the type of artist he is, like, I think his death kind of exposed him to people that probably had never checked for him, or people that had kind of written him off for whatever reason. Because I every now and then I have come across people who are like anti-Doom people, and this is like years ago, and I'm just like, what? Like, what do you hate thing? Like, what's wrong with you? And I think that a lot of those people might have like softened their stance and kind of given him a second chance. But death of an artist, especially one who's not done, tends to really allow people to dig in again. And I think that happened with Doom for sure. We'll see.
I would find it ironic that a lot of people would revere you for something that you're unhappy with. I read that you can't sit through daylight without wishing that you had put better drums on it. And I appreciate you not being like George Lucas and updating your old material. Like, here's Labor Days 2021. Enjoy.
Oh God, fuck that.
Yes, yo. Yes, yo. And you don't
I mean, that's like everyone anytime I post about something on music, say on like Facebook on my music page or something, there'll be people being like, "When are you going to make another Music by Cave Light?" And I'm just like, there's nothing that's farther from what I will ever do again. Music by Cave Light. And it's not because I don't like the album. It's just because like I was fucking 20 something when I made it. It was the 90s when I started making that album. Like that's how long ago it was. And I'm so removed from that sound. And any artist that kind of wants to rehash their old shit generally doesn't have much to say at that point.
Whenever someone asks you that, tell them to go listen to Scarface's "My Mind Playing Tricks on Me" 2.0, and didn't age well.
Wait, that happened?
That happened. It was on his album.
Ooh.
Yeah, he updated the classic track, and it's like,
that's terrible. Well, it's the saddest shit, man. Like when artists literally remake an album from like 20 years ago, they'll be like, something number 2. You're like, why? Like it's like Lords of Underground, Keepers of the Funk 2. It doesn't make sense. I mean, same thing with movies though. Like, I'm very skeptical about Coming to America 2, because like, why would that be good?
Yeah.
25 years after, 30 years after the fact, it's like, it's a little late. I hope it is.
I think that's how it was with Bill and Ted, which I'm not going to see because I don't want to see Alex Winter.
I was going to ask. I haven't seen it.
I just picture
Yeah.
Alex Winter saying home, like, hey, Keanu wants to do another movie with you 30 years later. And he's probably like, fuck yeah. Like, I need a paycheck. Let's do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Boston University is where you met Aesop, right? What was your major?
I had no major. I went there for a year. I was in the general studies program and I dropped out. And general studies is where you went after you were not good in high school. And they basically gave you 2 years to kind of right the ship, and then you'd be matriculated into the normal, into like a normal major, most likely a communications major or something like that. But I was there for a year, and I was like, well, this isn't going to work. And I just knew I was never a good student. I never cared about school, I just dipped.
That's good though. I mean, you didn't waste your parents' money. A lot of people do the 4 years, waste their parents' money. And you did them a favor.
Yeah, I mean, I used to bring that up to them, be like, I saved you guys a lot of money.
That's a good argument.
Yeah.
What's funny though, around that time though, you were dabbling in being an MC, so there has to be some tapes out there with a few Blockhead verses.
Oh, I mean, are they out there? Probably not. I mean, they're literal cassettes if they exist. I mean, I was in a group and I recorded many verses. I did an album with the group I was with. I've rapped on songs with Aesop, but I mean, these songs never made it to the internet, thank God. And I wasn't even that bad. I was just like not great, I was just like totally whatever, I was like a mediocre battle rapper.
Yeah, but you could have had that Manny confidence,
Nah, I didn't really have it. That's like I found a picture of me and my group performing from like 96 or something like that, and I was just looking at me on stage and being like, that is a very uncomfortable person.
See, I almost didn't bring up Manny because I think it was 2 days ago.
Oh, Manny, the guy who taught me everything.
Yeah, because remember a couple days ago I brought up Noah Gay, and I thought you were going to chuckle when you said, "Who are you?"
Oh, that was you.
Who are
okay,
you?
yeah,
How do you know him?
I totally connect the dots because that's dude. I meant to apologize about that because I didn't really. I just saw someone write that, and I didn't realize it was you. And then I was like, who? Wait, what? Because this dude Noah Gay, like I wasn't really close friends with him. He's just a name.
Yeah,
he's just a dude that I knew a little bit.
I thought he was gonna be like, he's gonna be so proud that I did my research, and you're like, who are you? What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, because I mean, this is a dude I'm not even really friends with.
But you weren't good with the punchlines though. When you were rhyming,
I think I was funny. Like it was like me as a rapper was like a much funnier, is a much closer version to me than me as a producer, personality wise. But I was also in the era of like trying to flip crazy flows that I really wasn't capable to do, and just I was trying to be deeper than I was, and like toward the end when I kind of stopped taking it seriously, I think I actually got better, but and I got more just like kind of funny wordplay and punchlines and stuff like that. But after dealing with real rappers, when I met Aesop and I was like, oh shit, okay, well that puts me into perspective, and I don't need to do this anymore.
Well, I mean, you've had a long storied history with Aesop, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been I think it's been over a decade since you've had placement on an Aesop album, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I've done a bunch of remixes for him, but we have little surprises in the works.
Okay, that's good because I was starting to think like
I can't get into it, but there's a it's that story's not done.
And then there was like something else I noticed, like so the track before Daylight is a track called Labor, which you did not produce, but it got on a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, and I really wish that they would have grabbed a track that you produced because I imagine that check in the mailbox just keeps coming year after year after year after year.
I wonder. I've had songs. I had one song on, I think it was a 2K, one of the NBA 2K games from like 2010 or something like that, and I don't recall the check being too big. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't recall it because it's just a licensing thing. It's not like getting in a car commercial, which is like pay your rent for 3 years.
I'll see. The misconception is I always think like these royalties are like I was thinking. It's a lot more fruitful than it is.
I think there's some licensing but stuff like that is not. It just goes into your publishing and you get like a little bump, but it's not much. Whereas so if you were to make a song specifically for a video game, then you're going to make a ton of money. Or if you're going to make if you put your like RJ had a song in a car commercial, and I guarantee you he paid his mortgage with it. You know?
So how do you build buzz in the RMHH era? How do you use the internet to build a buzz when something like the internet is so new?
Back then, I really just kind of I kind of cultivated this persona. That was me, but like it was very like opinionated, but I knowledgeable. So I knew a lot about rap, and I had all these opinions. And also because I was like one of the few people from New York that was recording Stretch and Bobbito back then, I would kind of put people on to new things, and then I kind of would like introduce stuff that I actually was working on into the same conversation, and some of that was Aesop Rock, and then eventually it got revealed that I was one of his producers, and but he got popular because it was also the time of like Lyricist Lounge was pre sound bombing, but it was Lyricist Lounge was definitely a popular thing, and also the Good Life Out West, where like styles were, it was all about crazy styles, and then also like weirdo rap stuff like Dose One, and even Atmosphere at that time was like weirder, and everyone was kind of hungering for all this kind of weird rap, and Aesop kind of just slid right in there, and people really gravitated to him, and I sold those CDs literally from my house, and like sold 200 Music for Earthworm CDs.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw Danny Brown in that bucket as well. That weird rap.
Oh yeah, but Danny Brown was way late. Danny Brown was like a decade.
He was, but he still came up in that era where people believed in using free music releases as promotion. And he tweeted last week that the only reason why Triple X was a free mixtape is because the label told him the album sucked and just give it away for free.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was wild. That's wild. It honestly. I mean, look at Run the Jewels, man. Like their first 3 albums were, and all their albums are free. And I feel like had their albums not been free, they probably wouldn't have gotten around as much, and they probably wouldn't have gotten as big as they are.
That I wanted to ask you on that stance because it got me thinking about like Acid Rap or Joey Badass 1999 or any other mixtape. If they conscientiously said, "Oh, the days of the demo tape are long dead and free music is the future," or if they just got bullied into that situation, maybe LP had to prove himself all over again with Run the Jewels, and that was the only route he had to take.
I wish I kind of knew. I don't know exactly why he did it. I mean, like the fact he did it the second time makes me think it was definitely, something that he did on purpose. Like it wasn't like he wasn't pushed into it. But it's kind of really just playing the long game. And but when they did that, there was other acts doing the same thing, and it was obviously paying off because these albums were just spreading around like crazy. I mean, like even something on a lower level like Sparkmaster Tape, like he had like his 2 first albums, which are my shit. I love them, and I would never have heard them if they weren't just these free downloads that just popped up.
Put a beat on.
We get shipments so big that when we be shipping our shit, we chipping the shit might just slip out of sink. Hey, Rizzo, fuck what you think? 49 roofies in a motherfucking drink, 49 groupies on my fucking dick. Cause I roll through my street with a gun by my prick snitch. Click, click, got rich mob shit, off the topic. Fuck your gossip, shot that hot shit, now you gone. Donkey of the week, Charlamagne to go. Bang that squash shit, it's on shit. We kill shit, yeah, that dawn shit. My hoes bitches be raunchy. Rock on, living in Versace like stop.
And like stuff like that helps. I considered putting an album out for free too, but I was like, yeah, but I'm not a rapper, and like this isn't going to really help me. And there's also people. There's like instrumental artists that have done that too that make careers off it, like Pretty Lights and Bass Nectar are both guys I think put out all their music for free for years, and they're playing like 5,000 person venues like the next year.
Well, what about the Radiohead model? Because you have a philosophy where you refuse to spend more than $5 a record, and with the Radiohead model, you can put in $4.99 and buy it.
Wait, what's the Radiohead model? What? Oh, you make your own price?
Yeah, pay your own price. So you can give them $100 or you can give them $1.
I'll spend money on music I listen to, but not on stuff I sample.
But sampling is where the income comes from, right? Wouldn't that make sense to flip your philosophy?
No, because the people who I'm buying those records from are not. They're not the artists. These are old records. These are record collectors. These are like record shops who mark their shit up like 200%. Like I don't care to support them. And these are records that have long been out of circuit. I mean, I'm talking the records I sample are not exactly well-known records. So the time for those guys to get paid is long gone, and now it's just kind of people grubbing off the fact that people want to buy rare records. And fuck those people. I don't. I'm not doing them favors, and so I stopped buying records like 5-6 years ago. I'm like new music is something totally separate. That like if I don't like I don't really I'm not a sit around and listen to records kind of person. Like I don't, but I support the idea of it, and I support vinyl as a thing because it is like the last bastion of just something you can hold on to with music. It's the last like physical copy that actually matters anymore. And I'm a person who came up with that shit, and I'm a person who like read the liner notes to every album I bought. So I appreciate people who are like record collectors, but when it comes to old stuff that is just in some dusty box at like a at like a Salvation Army, like no, I'm good. Like it doesn't matter.
I don't know if you have your finger on the pulse of like cancel culture. This month alone, Gina Carano lost her job.
I mean, I'm aware of it.
So that like Gina Carano lost her job at The Mandalorian, talked about the Holocaust or whatever.
Yeah, I saw
guy from The Social Network is into cannibalism and raping women, and that made Jennifer Lopez feel a little uneasy about co-starring in a movie with him. And the creepy guy Marilyn Manson, turns out he's kind of real life creepy too. So
I mean, we all knew that about it, and Shia LaBeouf and all that stuff. Like think about like Marilyn Manson, Shia LaBeouf's like everyone knew that. Like there's like no one knew. It's funny that people are like, oh, like clutching their pearls now. I'm like, those guys have been on record as scumbags for a long time.
What makes R. Kelly untouchable? What makes Marilyn Manson untouchable? Do we have to wait 10 years for them to fall out of their prime, where record sales go down, and then we're like, aha, we got you. You're not that famous anymore. You're a jerk.
I mean, I think society dictates who gets canceled and who doesn't, and if R. Kelly fans are going to still listen to R. Kelly after all the shit he did, then that's really more testament on them. I mean, like I'm pretty sure R. Kelly has lost a huge chunk of fans from what he did. Because I mean, what he did is insane, and I'm sure. And Marilyn Manson. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Like, it's too early to tell. But also, it's not like he's exactly making music now that people give a. He's not that popular now. Like, if someone like Justin Bieber got canceled for some crazy shit like that, then we would see. Because then you'd see like, oh, this is actually an artist who makes music that's relevant to now. And if it affects him, then we got something, Army Hammer probably won't work again.
That's safe to say.
Even though his shit was just a weirdo fetish. I mean, unless he's actually did he come out with actually assaulting any women, or he just like wrote gross shit to them?
He said that he hit a deer and reached in the deer and ate its beating heart. And said he wanted to, and then he said he wanted to do that to her. It's not illegal, but if I'm Jennifer Lopez's agent, be like, hey, this guy eats wolf hearts. He's going to be co-starring in a movie with you. She'd be like,
I mean, shit. People have lost their careers over way less than that, and so yeah, he's I mean, yeah, he probably won't be playing a Winklevoss twin anytime soon. So it's tricky though. It's a lot of gray area and we don't really live in a world of nuance right now.
Yeah, it might seem odd, but I was actually thinking about your dad, how he would chill with Kurt Vonnegut, and it's like, did he know that Kurt was distant from his children and cruel to his first wife and depressed and angry? No, they probably talked about art, and they fed off each other's energy and friendship.
I mean, he might have, but shit, maybe my dad was like that. Like it's like that's what I'm saying. Like those things aren't criminal; they're just humans being humans, and and the fact that like who isn't flawed, like who isn't. I mean, there's people that have done shit that are definitely terrible, and then there's people that just have had rough patches in their life. I don't know. It's just shitty that everyone's kind of on edge about being thrown into the fire. Like I've definitely had those moments when the Me Too movement started. I started racking my brain, being like, is there anything I could possibly get called out on for this? And I was like, nah, I'm good. And but it made me think, and I think a lot of guys kind of stepped back and took into account all these things and were like really actually concerned about it, and especially and it started happening in the underground music culture. In a lot of producers, like EDM producers, got called out for shit. I mean, rappers have been called out for shit. It's hard to avoid.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Talib Kweli is the next one. If he doesn't slow down, man, on his Instagram, I don't know if you're familiar. I'm a big Kweli fan, but he's got a.
Well, didn't he get kicked off? He got kicked off Twitter. I've actually never really liked Kweli, but he I've heard he was wild on Twitter. I never followed him on Twitter, but I heard he was like wild.
He got booted on Twitter, and now he's on Instagram. In the same day, he'll call a complete stranger a Nazi, and then he'll go make a podcast with Goody Mob and an album with Diamond D, and pretend like he didn't just spend 5 hours of his day arguing with a racist on his Instagram page. And I'm like, that's going to catch up with you, man. You gotta. Who am I? But you got to slow down on that, buddy.
I mean, he just seems kind of reactionary from what I've seen, or like what I've heard about him. Like, and that's a common problem on. I can only speak to Twitter, but like, motherfuckers get into it on Twitter. I've fallen for shit before. Where I've been like, where someone said something and you're just like, what? And you get super defensive about it. But it is what it is. People react differently, and it is weirder when you're like kind of an older rapper, like and like Jizza posted like talking about like asking if the Earth was flat, and I was like, aren't you the genius? Like, shouldn't you? And then people start getting at him, and he's like, hey, I'm not saying it's flat. I'm just asking questions, and you're like, yeah, that's a stupid question, man. That's a really dumb question, and shit happens, shit pops off. That's why Twitter's so great.
Well, I got to say, if you ever start a podcast, which I think you'd be great at, we should start a network. Screw Blueprint and The Logic. Our new 30-minute friendship should trump your lifelong friendship to them, and we should do something.
Those guys are great. I had a podcast.
Oh, you did? Wow. Oh, man. I know it takes a lot of time and consistency, and it's hard to get it past 10, 20, 30 episodes.
I got to 25 episodes, but it's because it was me and my friend Pauline. We did it, and it was just us talking shit and being silly. But it was called Rogglecast, and we got 25 episodes in, but then she moved to LA, so we stopped.
Oh.
But it was fun. It was fun. It was like maybe like 6 years ago. Probably a lot of shit on there that I regret saying. But what are you gonna do?
Did you hear Willie D on Joe Rogan recently?
No, I heard him on like a while ago. I don't like. I love Willie D, but I don't love Joe Rogan. So it's kind of a mixed blessing, a mixed bag for me.
Well, there's nothing more gangsta than a Paula Abdul diss track. They called her an Oreo cookie and a silly hoe. Never forget.
Oh yeah, I have that album going out like a soldier. Like Paula Abdul, she's a silly hoe. Yeah, it's the best.
I love that. The last thing I want to touch on, the very last thing, I mentioned your father earlier. Your father, R.I.P. Mm-hmm. He was almost legally deaf, and I'm yes. Dumb. I don't know if being legally deaf is hereditary or if it's just caused by old age. Oh. But I was worried about you because losing your ability to hear. Oh no, that's like a master pianist's fingers falling off, and
No. My dad was deaf because he was in World War II and got hit by a boat. And then when he was recovering in a church, it was bombed. And he lost 70%, 75% of his hearing, or like maybe less at that point, but it got worse as he got older.
Well, he sounded like he lived a fascinating life.
Yeah, he lived a pretty crazy. I mean, he was 60 when I was born. Oh. So I have a 74-year-old brother.
Wow. Yeah. I
put it in perspective.
I know that Nora Jones's dad was like 66 when he had her. So
wasn't her dad Ravi Shankar or something?
I think he was like a famous like beatnik musician. Yeah. And then
I thought it was Ravi Shankar. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, and I think he at like 75 or 78, he kind of like left her and pursued touring. And I'm just like, that's it. I mean, it's I can't relate to it, but it seems kind of fascinating that you're still passionate about the music life that old.
I mean, if you're, that's wild. I will not be doing that one. But also, when you're that old and you have a kid, you're really rolling the autism dice. Like you're just like, yeah. like you're like it's such a dice roll. Like I'm so lucky that I'm not autistic. With my dad and my mom was 40 when I was born, so it was kind of like I had two old parents. So it was it could have gone either way.
Do you have kids?
No. Nope.
So that the history might repeat itself. Then you might be an old dad,
or
maybe.
Just I won't have kids. I don't know. I'm not. I've never really had an urge to have kids, and I don't see it changing. I mean, it could. You never know. But it's not something I've really thought about. I like my freedom, and I like privacy and being able to get up and leave if I want to. I can barely I kind of want a dog, but the thing that's holding me back is they're like, well, but what if I want to go away for a week?
As someone with 2 kids and 2 dogs, please keep that mentality up. I'm very jealous.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no, I definitely talked to my friends, and they're like, "Yeah, probably shouldn't have a kid." I'm like, no problem.
Well, this is the part of the podcast where I will give you the floor to tell people whatever it is you want to tell them: future projects, current projects, where to get it, where to find you.
Well, I put out an album called Quarantine Peace early into the quarantine. It was basically a bunch of songs I made live on Instagram, and I've just put them out. So they're like, they're kind of short vignettes. They're not like 5-minute epics like I usually put out. I'm currently working on a new album that will hopefully be out in the summer. I have an album that I'm working on with this producer Elliot Lip, which will hopefully be out this time of year. I mean, some point this year, and some other surprises for later in the year that I may not speak on just yet.
Surprises like re-upping the mightyjones.com website.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
But
it was good music, though.
Yeah,
good
I
music.
like it. I like it. Like, no one heard it, but I do like that album a lot. But we're also 4 people who all have lives, and they all have jobs, and there's kids involved, and it was tough to get that album together. So at least we got that one out.
Understandable. And you're a scholar and a gentleman, sir. Thank you for being here and sharing a piece of yourself.
Pleasure.
And you've been in the game a long time, so I hope this wasn't a cookie cutter interview, and you had a little fun.
Oh, no, you knew your shit, man. You're pulling out stuff that I was like, oh wow, Manny. Really?